Is the Samsung Galaxy A03s a good phone to buy in 2022? Well, in this video, we're gonna find out. What's going on, guys? Khalifa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're gonna be taking a look at the Samsung Galaxy A03s and going over whether or not it's a good phone to buy in 2022. So let's get started. So this phone has a 6.5-inch PLS LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 270, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen to body ratio of about 81.8%. We got a water drop notch up here for the front facing camera, and this is a lot thinner and less disruptive than most water drop notches. So I definitely am a big fan of that. This camera is 5 megapixels, so not the best, but also not the worst. Overall, I do like the general look at this phone. It has decently thin bezels and a nice sleek design. In addition to this, the phone, while not being huge, is definitely on the larger side, so the display, being this large, is going to be great for content consumption. So if you're watching videos, viewing photos, playing a game, even reading, everything is going to show up decently large on this display, giving you a better overall experience. And at the same time, while the display is large enough to be good for content consumption, it's not so large that it's uncomfortable to put in your pocket or hold in your hand. Now for storage, this phone is getting 32 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion. So in my opinion, that leaves a lot to be desired. These days, even with entry-level phones like this, you can get at least 64, if not 128. Honestly, it's really not that hard to find a phone with a decent amount of storage. And while you can put stuff on a microSD card, it's not nearly as convenient as having everything on the phone itself. So in this day and age, with apps, data, the system, pretty much everything getting larger and larger, having more storage on the actual phone itself is always going to be a good thing, and unfortunately, this phone really just doesn't have a whole lot. But with that being said, if you're not a power user, if you're just going to be doing really basic activities on the phone and don't plan on having a lot of apps, then you should be okay. And with photos and videos, that's really not that much of a concern because those are things you can easily put on a microSD card. Now there's no wireless charging with this phone, which is not a big surprise. That's typically a feature you find in flagship phones, but in rare cases, other phones that aren't flagship phones do actually have it. For security options, we're actually pretty good here. We got a fingerprint scanner right here on the power key, really convenient spot for it, and it makes unlocking the phone a lot faster. In addition to that, we also have face unlock, so having both options, while definitely not uncommon, is always a nice thing to see because lots of phones in this price range only have one or the other. For that matter, this issue isn't even limited to lower end phones. The iPhone 13, for example, has face unlock but not a fingerprint scanner. Now I'm not saying that that means this phone is better than the iPhone 13, but it is interesting that this phone does have both, while lots of other phones out there only have either a fingerprint scanner or face unlock and not necessarily both. Now with that being said, let's give this fingerprint scanner a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. As you can see, it was really fast and responsive, no issues here. Now taking a look at the rear camera setup, we got a triple camera setup here with a 13 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode. So even though there's no ultra wide camera here, which is a little disappointing, the camera setup really isn't that bad. Now this is a photo taken with the main camera of the phone, and it's definitely a nice quality photo. The colors are really bright, the lighting looks really good. For an entry level phone, this actually looks really professional. Now to be fair, this photo was taken in pretty optimal lighting, but you can really tell just from this photo that this phone is more than capable of getting a few really nice pictures if you want to use it for social media or something like that. Now this photo was taken with portrait mode, and honestly, this is one of the best portrait mode photos I've seen in a lower end phone like this. Even in phones that are a couple steps up from this, like the Cricket Dream 5G, and the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G, and the Blue G91 Pro, the phones that are solid mid-level phones, it's still not uncommon to see a lot of distortion in the portrait mode. But with this phone, we're really not seeing any. This is pretty much a perfect looking photo. And to further put this into perspective, portrait mode isn't even meant for random objects, it's meant for people, and this is a traffic cone. So that really goes to show that despite this being just an entry-level phone, the portrait mode is actually really good. Now this photo was taken with the macro camera. This is not nearly as impressive as the last two, but considering that it doesn't look a whole lot different from other macro cameras of phones that are more expensive than this, I would say it's okay. So overall, the photo quality of this phone is surprisingly good for what it is. Normally the cameras of entry-level phones are only good for sending pictures to friends and family, maybe using something like Snapchat where the quality really doesn't matter. But in the case of this phone, I would say you can get some nice photos for social media or something like that. Now with video, this phone can shoot videos in qualities up to 1080p in both the rear and front cameras. So nothing special here, no 4K or anything like that. Typical entry-level phone kind of stuff. Now internally, this phone is getting 3GB of RAM with the MediaTek Helio P35 processor. I ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on the phone, and it came back with a single core score of 175 and a multi-core score of 891. So it's definitely not the fastest phone out there. In fact, it's pretty average for an entry-level phone. But if you're just using it for basic activities, like sending text messages, making calls, streaming YouTube videos, and some light web browsing and social media use, this should be completely fine for that. But if you're getting into higher activities, like high-end gaming and video editing, then you're probably going to want to look for a device with more processing power, maybe more of a mid-range phone, or maybe even an older flagship phone. Now this phone has a 5000 mAh battery that supports 15-watt fast charging, so that's really good. This phone's gonna get tons of battery life throughout the day, and you probably won't have to charge it until the nighttime unless you're really heavily using it, but even then, it should be fine. And even if your phone does end up dying, the fast charging is gonna help you charge it up a lot faster so you won't have to wait around for it. This is great if you have a more mobile lifestyle where you don't have a lot of time to charge your phone and you're not near a charger all the time. In addition to its life throughout the day, this phone's battery is going to get a lot of longevity because as the battery starts to degrade, with a larger battery like this, you're not going to notice it in the battery's performance nearly as quickly as you would with a smaller battery. As a result, you can keep the phone for a lot longer without having to replace it. So if you like to get one phone and keep it for a long period of time, this is going to be a great option for that. So in conclusion, is the Samsung Galaxy A03s a good phone to buy in 2022? I would say it's still a solid choice. It doesn't have a whole lot of features that are above and beyond for an entry-level phone, but I really do like the camera. It has a decent display. The processor isn't really bad for what it is. It has a great battery that supports fast charging, and overall, I would say the phone has a nice looking modern design that doesn't look or feel cheap at all. So if you're looking for an entry-level phone for more of the basics, like sending text messages, making calls, streaming videos, taking photos, and doing some light web browsing and social media use, and you want a good camera that can take nice photos when you really want them, the Samsung Galaxy A03s is still going to provide a great amount of value for you in 2022. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And as always, I will see you in the next video.